Right, good afternoon. We are live, or I am live. That gives a clue. There could be someone else waiting to join. And there is. This is the first of the live interviews that I wanted to do this week as part of Men's Health Week, to just find out about health. What does it mean to different people? And these are people that I have worked with, collaborated with. We've interviewed each other before, but they've got their own perspective on health and their own story as well. And I thought it'd just be fantastic to share that with you all. So today's guest, now this person is a very high profile and inspirational speaker on the subject of mental health, but specifically the lived experiences of mental health. I'm going to let him do more of an introduction, but it's with fantastic pleasure that I introduce you to Mr. Nick Elston. Nick, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm very good, James. You?
Good. I'm very good, thank you. Yes, it's a warm but humid day today, so I'm kind of wishing I was out there, but there's no sun, so it's not too bad.
I'll be honest, just disarming truth right up front. This is only my second session or second kind of time I've spoken to anybody since returning from holiday. So I'm going to try my best not to have that kind of fluffy brain Homer Simpson kind of approach, but we'll go for it. We'll be good.
You've had a morning to get back into work. Come on, Nick. No, that's cool, and I'm glad you had a great week off. But tell the viewers, tell them a bit about yourself.
Okay, cool. Thank you, James. So I am an inspirational speaker on the lived experience of mental health. Beefy title, justify it by saying I'm not solution focused. So my role is I work with some of the world's leading organizations to increase engagement in their mental health initiatives they have in place already. Because for me, I think the gap is in the engagement. The gap is in bringing people to the doors of the solution, kind of like giving people permission to engage as well. And certainly delivering my stuff globally. Here in the UK especially, we've got this real big kind of stigma around reaching out, especially as men, not exclusively, but especially with men. Reaching out for help is not really part of our DNA, because we've been told to kind of man up and stiff up a lip and everything else. So that's kind of pretty much what I do. 9 till 5. It's not really 9 till 5, but that's kind of what I do.
What's that?
Yeah, it's not 9 to 5 is a myth, isn't
it? Exactly. No, awesome. Thanks, Nick. And Nick and I, we've known each other for a good few years now. We were both speakers separately. We weren't quite at the same event, but I think we're one after each other at the amazing Winter Gardens venue down in Weston-super-Mare. Beautiful venue, yeah, and we've kind of collaborated a few times since. But Nick, I'm going to start the conversation, particularly about health, with a really simple question: what does health mean to you?
Health is a kind of a double-edged sword for me, and the elephant, quite literally, in the room is being 6'4" and 20 odd stone. That actually my relationship with physical health is certainly off kilter, I would say. It's fair enough. However, it's because my association with it is a positive one. I've always been kind of brought up thinking big is good. So my association with big is quite strong, quite powerful. Some of my closest relationships, like my grandparents, in between feeding me rounds of sandwiches, will say he's a big lad, he loves his food. I am a big lad, I love my food. So it's kind of like a comfort blanket for me on the physical side. So I'm really glad you've had the physical health experts on as well, because they can cover the bits that's not me. I'm not that guy. The bit that I kind of concern myself with most is the mental health aspect. And I think when it comes to that, I think for me, I see it with a lot more clarity. I think mental health has, as a term, has a lot of negative connotations, not just the stigma of mental health generally, but just as a terminology. Mental health is just a neutral state. Whether it's good or bad, that's a whole different thing. So for me, I think it's about, when it comes to mental health, considering it a muscle. So actually something we can exercise and nurture every day, but recognizing that mental illness is absolutely something that's different. So actually, one of the first things I do, I guess, when I do my stuff is to clearly define what is mental health. And mental health, we all have. Like, people will say to me, like, Nick, I have mental health. Yeah, absolutely you do. 100% of the humans on the planet have mental health. But because of the stigma attached to it, we will lump it in with mental illness. That's kind of my take on it, I would say.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what got you to the point now where you are, I want to say you're inspiring others, but I think it's there's more to it, as you said. There's educating others, there's allowing others to, you're giving them a chance to recognize they've got mental health, full stop, as you said. But actually it's almost a bit of it's a commodity. It's precious. It's actually, do you know what, you've got mental health, what are you going to do with it? What got you to doing what you do?
I guess short answer is, it wouldn't be very good for an interview, is breakdown. But that's a really short answer. I think I had mental illness as a child. I had obsessive compulsive disorder. I'm 43 now, but don't judge. I've had a hard life. So back in the day, the treatment for OCD was just kind of 8 weeks of talking therapy. And as much as I love talking therapy, and it's a very powerful thing, I still use it. I mean, you'll never book me after 2 o'clock on a Friday. Use it every week. I still use it as a proactive tool. But because it wasn't treated, it morphed into something called generalized anxiety disorder. Now, through my education, into my business career, my corporate career, continually running at high anxiety, continually running at high nervous energy, and therefore a state of burnout, culminated in my breakdown in 2012. And speaking was the vehicle that brought me back from that. So the ability to be able to stand up, and especially being a man in 2012, all 6'4", 20 ounce stone, me, sharing my experiences, it was a selfish move, because actually it was therapy, cheap therapy, literally it was. But I saw the power it had in other people. And I know you, being the communication king, will know actually the power of our words. And it kind of, what I saw was it gave people permission to think about their own stuff. So even though it started off as a selfish move, the dynamic shifted, and that's where it shifted for me. And the one thing I think has been really influential in my success as a speaker is still using the stage as a therapy space, still telling people that I have not got this nailed. There are some days I wake up feeling like, and I'll tell people I feel like that. I don't mask anything. And I think there's a difference. So I bring the reality in every day. This is not like a hallelujah, he's cured. Most speakers, as you know, in the professional speaking world, are very ego driven. It's very polished. It's very polished performance kind of thing. And there's certainly a place for that. In my space, I think authenticity and vulnerability need to be the king.
I agree. Yeah. And it's interesting because I guess, you know, one of the things you're talking about there, and kind of going onto the stage and it being kind of a form of therapy, it's showing a bit of that vulnerability. I've talked quite a lot recently with some other people as well in kind of some clubhouse rooms and the odd blog here and there about imposter syndrome and how massive that is for people and all people. You know, we're talking celebrities, sports people, performers, whatever it is, they get it, you know, and it's, you know, it is very much up here about, you know, what our inner voices are saying and that real feeling of you're a fraud. How have you got the right to be on stage telling me about this? And I mean, I certainly get it. If I'm, you know, if it's before a talk, before a training course, even maybe before a coaching session, there is that little voice that just says, "Oh, who are you?" Yeah.
And the session I just run on. Sorry, James.
No, go on, carry on.
No, the session I've just come off the back of this morning was around using vulnerability to become bulletproof in that sense. That and we touched on imposter syndrome because for me, just a personal kind of opinion, as somebody who certainly experiences that most weeks, there's not one week that goes by I don't want to press that big red eject button and go do something nice and easy. But I think when you're visible, the things that I've really kind of noticed when it comes to imposter syndrome is that it seems to only affect people that are perceived as high achievers. So it's kind of like your self-belief cannot keep up with the reality of your success. So I think that's the first thing. But the second thing, which is really interesting, is the link between vulnerability and imposter syndrome. That if you don't show the reality of your experience in life, in business, then you are masking your behavior, and therefore you do create that imposter syndrome by default. So for me, actually vulnerability and giving everything with that what we call brutally honest, that unfiltered approach to things eases the imposter syndrome, because I'm telling people the reality of the situation.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm just thinking, you kind of started when we kicked off talking about kind of the physical side of things leading to the mental side of things. And I was having a conversation with someone this morning about I kicked off a conversation in a group about it's Men's Health Week. So, you know, and I think I put the question in there, what does health mean to you? And someone had put in there saying it's mind first. It's like, get the mind right and the rest will flow through your body, which I thought is interesting. That's one aspect of it. I kind of have a view that is actually, and it's my experience, it doesn't mean it's like fact, but my experience is that I need to take care of my body through what I eat, through the exercise I do, and sleep and that kind of thing, to feel better mentally. And that seems to drive me more than the other way around. What's your either your experience, your view on that?
Yeah, certainly my experiences. Today's a great example. Fresh off of holiday, I feel recharged, I feel great. So actually the first thing I did this morning was I got up early, went out for a nice long walk in the sunshine. It kind of, because I was in a good state, it encouraged me to do good things. So I guess that I know if I'm honest, if I'm doing the bad things, if I'm not doing so well, then I am more inclined to think, screw it, I'm not going to do that. I'll start again I'll start again tomorrow. I'll start again next week. So I think there certainly are. It's not arguments for both. I think it just showcases as a very personal experience. There's no getting away from the fact that when I sleep well, when I exercise, and when I do all the right things, I feel better. There's no getting away from that. I think that it's our relationship with things that conditions us. And as you know from the work we've done together in kind of workshops and talks and stuff, that conditioning plays a huge part of why we do what we do. So for me, that's kind of it. I know that if I'm doing the right things happen. It can happen the other way around. Usually it's led by my mental health. I ask people to consider themselves like a battery. So if I'm 10 out of 10, if I'm like today, I'm fully charged, I do all the right things and all the negative stuff just bounces off me. Now, if I get below 5 out of 10, some of the negative stuff sticks. I don't start to do the right things. So it kind of has that effect. So I think a good rule of thumb is that think of yourself as a battery, and then actually start to align that with what your actions are at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And actually, the battery is a great analogy, and I use it when I talk about whether we are more introverted or extroverted, because sometimes we don't see. People might look at the two of us and go, right, they both, they're comfortable talking here on a live. They both talk on stage. They're on training courses, do coaching. So they both must be the same. They're probably extroverted, but we're not.
No,
we're not.
No
and
way.
There's finding that energy, and it is about your battery. It's what charges you. So at the end of the day, I know you've told me you need to go away, find a dark space somewhere by yourself to recharge your battery back up because it's depleted. I find at the end of a day of running stuff, my battery is literally it's overflowing. And it's actually, it's almost to the point of I've got to control it because there's too much power going on. And I probably should do a similar thing and go and be on my own so I don't just start blurting stuff out to the wrong people. But it is about knowing how does your energy go down? What makes it go up? And what does that mean to you in terms of, you said, 5 out of 10, bad stuff is going to stick. 10 out of 10, it won't, it will bounce off. And also thinking about your, what we know is the circadian rhythm as you go through the day. So when during the day are you at your best versus least productive? And that's kind of related to your energy levels as well. So you don't want to be doing that creative brochure, the marketing campaign, the email to win a new client when you're at a point in the day when your energy is low. That's when you want to just be replying and filing emails and, just doing some admin type stuff. And then when your energy is on a high again, whatever that is for people, whether that's mid-morning, mid-afternoon, late afternoon, that's when you do your good stuff. For me, that's that. If you're doing it wrong and you're doing the wrong stuff at the right time, you end your day just, with low energy. I think bad energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I know everyone has different kind of allowances. So say in the day, depending on your role and what you do and everything else. But I think if we can start to kind of retain kind of choice over everything that we can retain choice over, we can certainly start to kind of stack the odds in our favor. I think certainly when people, but also speaking to other people, and again, this is a global thing, this isn't just a British thing, but I know that when we struggle with our mental health, when we have even low self-esteem, low self-confidence, those kind of things, that the first thing that we sacrifice is choice, how we choose to go into that day, how we choose to live that day. This isn't about controlling anything that could blindside us. Like, stuff's always going to happen. That's but it's about how quick we can kind of rebound, I guess, how resilient we can become. So we sacrifice the only thing we've got, which is choice, how we proactively choose to go into that day. And I think therein lies the biggest challenge. If we can reclaim our choice day by day, we can start to do those things that you mentioned. We can start to put this kind of like buffer zones in place and those little kind of habits and doing things at the right time. I know certainly from me and my experiences that anxiety was regret from the past or fear of the future. Very rarely was it today. Pretty much today I can deal with anything that came at me. And I think if we all took that approach, then we can start to have a better grasp on maintaining a positive mental health.
Yeah, and I think it is about that balance and that control, and it is about now. And I look at it, and one thing I learned from when I burnt out kind of 15, 16 years ago was I was trying to do too much stuff. I was trying to spin too many plates, and I didn't have any good habits in. I didn't have any good buffers in. And the one thing I learned was actually plan my day, plan my week, so that I can, it gives me a fighting chance of being successful. No point in trying to plan in too much because it needs doing, and then day by day I'm shifting stuff to the next day, because it just compounds and just adds up, and that still seeps in every now and again. There'll be times where I stop and I think, what have I done in my calendar? I've said yes to this and yes to this, and I know I'm just going to get to 5 o'clock and not be in a great state. So let's move that one. Let's politely decline that, or let's just realize actually how critical is it. I can move it to next week, the following month, but that for me is taking control back.
It is, and I think certainly we've touched on one already, which is kind of masking behavior. But there's two kind of main reasons why I got to that place. And like you said, you fill up your work diary with all your work stuff. And I said the last time I checked with the mortgage company, it doesn't get paid on dreams and missions. So you got to do something, I guess, to pay the bills. But the point is, the rest of our time, we tend to give away to whoever shouts loudest, especially if we're not in a great place, because we become more subservient to more dominant people, dominant situations. So if we're giving all of our work time to our work commitments, and then we're throwing away the rest of our time to whoever shouts loudest, like, where do you actually feature in your own life? That's such a huge question that people need to ask themselves, because let's take reincarnation off the table here, just in case. But if we get one go round at this, we want to make sure it's our go round. And I think for me, that's where it kind of really does align with people are waiting for permission just to think about their own stuff. We're so busy firefighting, we don't actually stop and think about what we're actually doing. As you said, checking in, do I need to do this? Why am I doing this?
Yeah. And trying to make sure we're trying to be us and not trying to be someone else, not trying to live someone else's life or be like them, because we've seen them and we've seen what they've apparently achieved through Instagram and Facebook.
That's a really interesting one. I mean, that's not a modern day thing, and that FOMO thing that's always been around. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out now, kind of thing. But kind of back in my day, growing up, it was keeping up with the Joneses. We would compare our gardens against the neighbours' gardens, our car, and that's it. And if one lawnmower come out on a Sunday morning, then every lawnmower will come out on a Sunday morning. So we've always had that, but I think the difference is now we're comparing our spun and potentially unfiltered or filtered version of a truth against somebody else's. You're basically comparing fairy stories. You don't see the truth. You don't see the reality. Brad Burton, you've had on here, says one of the most powerful things I've heard a speaker say actually was run your own race. It's a reason why racehorses wear blinkers, because they don't get distracted about what's going on around them. And I think certainly as an entrepreneur, as a self-employed person, that's been one of my biggest challenges, is actually focusing on my own race, because it's so easy to get distracted, especially if it's a time where my mental health could not be in a good place, because we still get those peaks and troughs kind of thing. So I try and make the bigger picture decisions now when I'm in a 10 out of 10 as opposed to a 1 out of 10.
Yeah, you're right. And there are, I think with self-employment, there's more peaks. The peaks are more peakier, the troughs are troughier. We want to compare it to corporate life, where it's just, maybe a few little bumps, but generally plain sailing. I'd rather have the highs with the lows and know how to manage it and know where I've got to take control.
Well, this is it. And like you said, it needs to align with your ambitions and lots of different things. I mean, I know because I've shared it with you before, but when I was first went self-employed, 6 years ago, that I was working for Tesco 36 hours a week delivering groceries to the good people of Southwest. Now, I loved that year. It paid the bills, which was really crucial at the time. It gave me that kind of grounding. But 2 weeks ago, my local Tesco phoned me up. They're phoning up all the old drivers saying, "Oh, we're really short at the moment. Is any of you fancy coming back?" a little part of me thought, I'd love to do that now.
Yeah.
It just go out and drive and deliver people, chat to people, and but therein lies the thing, isn't it? That is a choice. That could be a choice. You could choose to do that. And genuinely, there's not one week that goes by I don't want to press that red eject button and go and do something that's easy or safe or but I think that it also doesn't align with my ambitions, my message, my passion. So yeah, I think it's a grass is greener thing all sides round. I think that if you're employed, you want to be self-employed. If you're self-employed, you pander to be employed. And
no, totally, yeah. You talked around kind of some of the habits or the buffers you put in place to help yourself. What are you happy to share what some of those look like? I'm just thinking, if it helps other people who might be thinking, I need some of these.
Yeah, so on a micro level, that every hour I will grab a glass of water, especially working from home, grab a glass of water, which I go downstairs for. So movement, hydration, saves me being stuck to this. I now, wherever possible, I don't do any engagements or calls after 4. I've moved all non-presentation calls to phone calls, so I can walk around the garden, especially now it's nice and sunny. Yeah. Friday, I leave completely off the calendar, so nobody can book time without me actually proactively doing that. So I use that as either a catch-up morning, and then Friday afternoon is like and I know this is a luxury of obviously what time you have. Friday afternoon is my kind of self-care afternoon where I have my call about my counselling call session, whatever that may be. And around that, I'll do things that are just good, I enjoy, and I love to do, kind of thing. Nice. So yeah, I think it's trying to implement as much as you can. It's taking that kind of that marginal gains approach, I guess. It's throwing in lots of little hacks along the way to give yourself that kind of I don't know, that overall bigger picture change. Like being away last week, even though I was in the UK, no emails, no LinkedIn. I'm not on social media now anyway. Lots of different, and that's one of the buffer zones I've put in place. That's a whole different presentation. The point is that I had a week of being completely off the grid to anybody who didn't have my phone number. And that did me so much good because you weren't constantly in the chase or check in. And bearing in mind, my phone is my livelihood. For the first 2 days, I thought the world was trying to get hold of me. And then then it was okay.
Yeah. And what was I thinking? Part of it, those micro steps, actually, because they're regular, if it's every hour you're going to get some water, then as at least 5-6 times a day you're doing that, if not more. That becomes habitual. And so it might be micro things which the cynic might say, yeah, but I'm just going from one call to the other. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. But it will be next week, and that won't happen. It'll be next month, and you're never going to get to it, and you're just making it worse. Whereas you do those small steps, they become habitual, so that without even thinking, you find yourself just getting up to go get the water, go for a walk. Just when you book a meeting, you're just saying it's a phone call rather than a Zoom or a Teams. It's you've got to do those little things to help yourself. Just as you say, just chip away at it, chip away.
Absolutely, like I said, I don't coach by any, apart from kind of the storytelling kind of stuff. I don't coach at all. So these are all things I've just picked up like anybody else can, just by learning and reading and watching and immersing. And those kind of things I picked up. There's a great book by Sarah Harvey called Kaizen, and Kaizen is it's a Japanese business methodology which actually was developed from the Americans in the 50s, I think. And it is about those daily, consistent, incremental changes and how they can start to stack in the favor. And it measures it against 3 kind of elements, and it applies personally, it applies professionally. Really strongly suggest anybody that's wants to make big changes, it's a great place to start, because you don't realize how big the changes are, because day on day you're just shifting a little bit more in the right direction. And that's what I've been using now for my fitness is things like Couch to 5K is a form of Kaizen. So meditation, using an app to slowly kind of build up my meditation skills, that kind of stuff. So it changes, like you said, it changes behaviors, it changes habits.
No, that's brilliant. So just thinking kind of as we kind of wrap this up, if you were to meet the young Nick Elston, impressionable teenager, didn't know what he knows now, what would be your biggest bit of advice to him?
I think for me, I think for a long time, and we're talking like decades, I lived with this kind of theory that that everything that's ever gone before is kind of has defined me. I guess it has, like everybody. Everything you've ever done before, everything you said, or everything you've ever done has led to where you are now. But for the longest time, I allowed that to define where I thought I could go. So it absolutely kept me in a comfort zone, which wasn't very comfortable. So I guess I would go back and say that it's what you do next that counts. I think there's something in that. It doesn't matter what's gone before, even today. Even if you messed up yesterday, even if you're not feeling good today, it still doesn't have to define where you're going to go from this point onwards. And I think that's what I would have said, because actually I would have started out on that journey a lot sooner. But in that vein, like I said, everything I've ever done has led to what I do today. So
fantastic, perfect, Nick. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for coming back from Cornwall to do this, because as you said just before we went live, like physically I'm here, but mentally I'm still sitting somewhere nice and relaxed, observing.
You formed me up now, though. You formed me up. I've got my speaking muscles back on again now, so thank you. Good
man. No, Nick, thank you very much, and thank you to the people watching this. If you're watching it on replay and you've got a question for me or for Nick, please just put it in the comments. I'll answer. I'll get it to Nick to make sure he can answer as well. If you're watching it on platform other than Facebook, then again, just please leave some comments, get in touch with either of us. Nick's contact details will be somewhere probably below or above near the video. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you, Nick.